Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Poly Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and look, I finally have my first combined HP and Poly swag. It came from here. I'm at ISE 2023 in Barcelona, and we have a great show for you this week. We're going to be speaking with one of my colleagues about all the things that we're talking about here at ISE, and then we'll be having a couple of conversations with some of the analysts that are covering the show and find out what their perspective is. So stay tuned. We have a lot for you. So my first guest on the show this week is my colleague Brian Phillips. Brian, tell everybody who you are and what you do and how your journey was to come to be with HP and Poly.
Oh boy, so I am part of our product marketing team from Poly. We're now called Solutions Messaging and NPI as part of the hybrid work and peripherals business unit at HP. I've been going back to Polycom. It was 17 years ago I started, so it's been a little while. I've done a little bit of everything. I actually started working on conference phones way back in the day, and then morphed over to IP phones, and then immersive telepresence, and then video conferencing, and so my team and I now basically do the product marketing for the video conferencing solutions at Poly HP.
And if you do a YouTube search for Poly, you might find me. Odds are pretty good you'd find Brian. You know, you're the one demonstrating most of the new products and the features and capabilities on them.
There may be a couple of videos out there with my face on them.
That's how Brian should be familiar to you. So what's the Poly story here at ISE? I mean, I know it, but they don't.
So. Sure. So much of our story here is around proof points of the value of these two companies coming together to deliver better, richer, more engaging and immersive collaboration solutions. So already, I mean, it's only been since, November 1 that it's been sort of official, right? But already we've got a lot of proof points showing the value of the combination of these companies. So the one that we are announcing here that's brand new at ISE is for MTR on Windows. Now, we've had what we call our Poly Studio Room kits for a while, right? For focus rooms all the way to large rooms for Microsoft Teams, matched up with different computes from different vendors. But we now have a Teams certified HP compute that's part of those Studio Room kit
powerful
solutions.
Machine, isn't it?
Very powerful. So it's a 12th gen i7 processor. It can do everything you need today on Teams, plus much more as new features and capabilities come out on Teams. So,
and the Poly HP story around Windows versus Android is and not or.
Exactly.
There are companies that do one, there are companies that do the other, and there are a lot of companies that do both depending upon their circumstances.
Yep.
So again, that's the whole story of our portfolio, is we've got everything that you need.
Exactly.
What else are we showing here?
So we've also got a whole suite of Zoom rooms. And so this is also a relatively new announcement. It's not brand new here, but we actually first announced at Zoomtopia. Again, Zoom certified HP compute along with Poly audio and video experiences together in one package. So again, kind of similar to the Teams on Windows story. We've got Zoom rooms on Windows, super powerful compute. Again, packaged up in these ways where it's very easy to determine, do I need a package for a small, medium, or large room? But the thing that we're showing here in the booth is actually a much more flexible and customizable configuration, where because of the power of that HP compute that's behind it, it can do a Zoom Rooms experience with 3 displays, 3 cameras for a very engaging kind of Zoom Smart Gallery multi-camera experience, really driven by the power of that compute at the core, plus all the experiences you get. We're showing it with a Poly Studio E70 cameras, with a Studio R30, so we can do people framing, we can do speaker framing, right? So being able to, again, match up the power of the Poly video and audio experiences with the HP compute, with, of course, the capabilities that the Zoom platform provides for these really engaging Zoom Smart Gallery experiences that I think are very unique in the industry.
Now, we're also showing some things at the conference this year that aren't specifically announced. They were announced before. They're not surprises. But it again shows the breadth of the portfolio. It's our X70, E70 on Microsoft Teams, which we announced. It's showing Google on the platform as well. Now, these aren't GA yet, but we're showing the experience, the beta experience here.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of technology previews. Like you said, things that were announced back in the fall. So we announced that we are going to have Microsoft Teams on Android available on the G7500 and the Studio X70, and we're showing it here on the Studio X70. It is coming very soon in our next firmware update, so we're showing it here as a technology preview, but again, very, very close to release, and you can check it out live in the booth. In addition, we are showing the Google Meet app running on Studio X. So this is something we announced in partnership with Google back in the fall, of now being able to, for Google Meet environments, be able to have a native app experience married up with the simplicity of a Studio X, with the video bar on top. You got your controller right on the table, very, very easy to get up and running with a Google Meet experience. So just layering yet another very powerful collaboration platform on top of all the other native apps we've got available for Studio X.
And staying with that theme of the video just for one more second, the tacit messages there are, if you buy a Poly device, there are no more golden handcuffs anymore. Whatever platform you want to use, whatever system you want to use, it's in there, it's available. And we just had on the show last week, and they're at the conference with us now, the folks from Neovit, showing that these things, you've already bought them, you already own them, they're now room sensors.
Yes.
They're giving you detail and data from the room. So it's buy it once, and no more you have to do these forklift upgrades all the time. It's really pro-consumer. It's a great story.
Oh, exactly. Just total flexibility, right? We know that our customers have different approaches they want to take with platforms, or maybe they want to transition from one platform to another at some point in time, or maybe they really believe that deploying Windows in their meeting rooms is the right approach, or maybe they want more of an appliance-based approach with Android, or to your point, maybe they want a mix of both. We don't care, right? We just are focused on delivering the best audio and video experiences, no matter how you want to deploy those solutions, no matter what platform you need to run. We want to make sure everybody is having a great, engaging hybrid work experience, no matter the platform, no matter what size room.
And then we've got a number of our headphones here on display, including the ones we just announced. They're in people's pockets. They're not actually being shown right now because they're not generally available yet. They will be, we're saying, end of March, April, sometime in that time frame. But it's the Voyager 360. They're in various different conversions, different packages.
Yes.
I couldn't come up with the word there. and with a lot of features that aren't available on true wireless earbuds nowadays, especially the fact that you've got a control surface for them, and it lets you do things with it, lets you plug it in on an airplane and be there. So we're showing that'll be announced, it's announced, that'll be out, in a few more months from now. But again, it's the same story. We don't sell one headset. We sell dozens of different types depending upon what your needs are, and we leave the choice up to the end user. No one size fits all.
And on that Voyager 360, I mean, to me, what makes it so compelling is that it is so well designed for that enterprise user and that enterprise experience, right? With from the audio quality to the acoustic fence features to being able to deliver an enterprise grade experience is going to be Teams and Zoom certified. Even, I don't know, what I think of as a kind of an enterprise grade feature in that you can take the smart case, plug it into your airplane in-flight entertainment system, and then Bluetooth your earbuds to that. I mean, obviously that's something any consumer gets benefit from as well, right? But you think of a lot of the business travelers who are traveling around, they don't want to have to bring a bunch of devices. So it's so well optimized for that kind of user and that kind of use case.
So it's still early in the year. It's February 1st while we're recording this, There's still a lot more announcements coming up this year, right? You've seen some of the things that are on our roadmap. I've seen them as well. We'll bring you things as soon as we can. We're obviously not going to break news here, but it's an exciting time to be with HP and Poly, isn't it?
It is. It's so great for me to see that just 3 months into this, we've already released multiple solutions that are showing the combination of Poly and HP coming together and the value of that, and that's just going to accelerate as we get through this year. So it's very, very exciting times.
So I'm hoping people will come see us. We're at Enterprise Connect. They'll come see us probably at Infocom. There's a lot of opportunities still left in the year to see us. Somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask you a question. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure, just brian.phillips@hp.com, or feel free to find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks for making the trip out here to Barcelona, Brian.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
I
appreciate it. Hey everybody, welcome back to ISE, and now we are in the ISE Influencers Studio, a very special studio because it happens to be using my personal Poly R30 as the camera, so no more out-of-focus cameras like we had on the last segment, and I'm here with industry...
It's a BYO camera studio.
BYO, although I had to ship it to Washington so they could carry it across to Europe. It's a long story. I'm here with influencer extraordinaire, analyst extraordinaire, Dave Michels. Dave, for somebody who doesn't know who you are, we got to get them, somebody to check them out, but if if they don't know who you are, tell everybody who you are and what you do in the industry.
Well, obviously I'm an influencer because I'm in the influencer lounge, and so that's my chief credential. My brand is TalkingPointz. I'm a one-man company. I cover unified communications. What I say is enterprise communications because it's contact center, telephony, messaging, and of course, meetings. And this is my first time here. You're like an old hat here.
Well, ISE had never been the more popular show in the industry until, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It started to really overtake in terms of announcements and things like that. And then, of course, we had COVID, and we moved from Amsterdam to Barcelona. So, yes, I've been here 4 or 5 times. This is your first ISE. What do you think of it?
I think it's a fantastic show. I think the name is kind of interesting because ISE, Integrated Systems Europe, and when you talk about integrated, it's really a function of multinational, right? Multi-language, and this Barcelona is a multi-language. I mean, I'm just walking down the aisles, and every other person is talking a different language. It's like this is the perfect place to have an integrated show. This is fantastic. It's a very broad show. It covers a lot of stuff, but that's irrelevant to me because they have all the communication stuff in one nice hall.
Most.
Most. I've had to leave that hall just a few times, but almost everything is in that hall, and it's like amusement park. It's just like one ride to another. It's a blast.
And you can either go like we did this morning, up and over the top.
I never did that till just now. I didn't know. It's
more new experiences.
It's like an amusement park. Now we're up on the monorail going through this whole thing. This is fantastic.
I showed you where the moving walkways are. They're the ones that they ripped out of all the airports.
The people mover. We call them people movers here at this park.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
At the Barcelona amusement park. So I know you went by the Poly stand at some point. Let's talk a little bit about some of the announcements there and what your take is on them. And you can be completely honest. What's great? What sucks? I know we were showing our new MTR kits. And any opinions about that?
What's great and what sucks? One thing, I've never been to a conference like this with the booths, or maybe we should say stands.
There's
yes,
stands.
That are so large. I was in a stand yesterday. I think that was bigger than my Super Target. I mean, this is just phenomenal, huge, and so I love that. This is a huge stands, booths. Both are hard to say. And so that's what I like. What I don't like is they're not big enough. And your booth is an example of this. I'm in the Poly booth, and there's a couple things I really wanted to see. You can't get into these things. They're so packed. You got multi-levels going on. I was trying to find the elevator. I mean, it was just insane. These are. I've never been to a conference like this, and it's just so. Once you do get in, the amount of information that's available to you is not like a traditional conference. I mean, normally a conference is here's light information. Go home and read our webpage, or we'll have a conference or something later. But here you could really have some very in-depth conversations, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we have some of our senior executives here. We have
I met with the new guy at Poly, Andy.
Rose, absolutely, new guy at HP Poly,
HP Poly. The old guy at HP, the new guy at Poly.
He's really doing a great job learning the systems and bringing together.
He's tall.
The best.
Do you look up to this guy? Of course you do.
My entire life, I've been a tall person, except when I meet my colleagues at Poly. I'm walking through the petrified forest. But we've done a good job, and he's done a good job helping us bring together the best of HP and the best of Poly here, which is exemplified by that MTR kit.
Yeah, so back to the MTR kit. So one of the key messages I think coming out of the Poly stand this year, I think we saw it a couple. Maybe it was at Zoomtopia where we first saw the HP Poly branding together. So first was the branding, and then I think you released one product with the Slice HP Slice CPU. But that story is just getting bigger and broader and broader, and so you clearly see the synergies now between HP and Poly. They didn't mention it in the booth, but one thing that's happening too is PCs are declining, and so I think HP is kind of ahead of the curve here. Saying, okay, PCs are maturing. What is exploding? And between the pandemic and Microsoft Teams and Zoom, it seems to be communications, not to mention contact center and the headsets. So you're seeing the synergies coming together. The new MTR with a new HP processor. Now you're talking serious processor. We're not talking slices anymore. Now we're talking serious process.
It's a heck of a machine.
A heck of a machine.
Teeny battle tank.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think, multiple screens, obviously planning ahead. I think that what else did I see from the HPs? Oh, you know what? Oh, I saw the booth that I really liked is your new earbuds. I've been
Voyager 360 and the 360 Plus.
I've been kind of critical of the earbud stuff because they just don't have the quality that I'm looking for, and they don't have the UI. I'm always trying to figure out how to control them, answer my call, put things on. What do I do with these things? And so, you tap, you double tap. That's the volume. That's what. And so I always get confused. And I think this is the most brilliant breakthrough in earbud technology I have ever seen. If you haven't seen this yet, it actually has on the case a touch screen that is intuitive, and you can do things, you can control them. I think that is the most brilliant thing in earbud technology. This is a breakthrough in earbud technology. So,
and it's interesting. Thank you for that segue. The gentleman who runs the HP Poly headset group, Andre Reed, is going to be my guest on next week's show, and he's going to do a nice show and tell on the product. That
I can understand why. Everybody wants to be his best friend right now.
Exactly. I want the first one. I want the second one. No, but we're waiting for the software to be completely finished. It'll be GA end of March, early April, something like that. But it's really cool. And there was, again, the story in our stand, I got to keep not saying booth, and I'll ask you if this is your opinion as well. We're in a maturing market around the products that have been out there. Yes, there were 2 or 3 manufacturers that released their first thingy that is what we've had on for 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is. So while that new product is coming out with the other manufacturer, we're now maturing it. You can take our bars now and you can use them with Microsoft Teams certified, Zoom certified, 8x8, Ring Central, and we were showing at the booth. We announced it a couple of months ago that you can use it with Google. Google Meet is
actually, you broke my news there. But yeah, in your booth, I tweeted this the other day. You have a display of the X30 on Google Meet, and I tweeted that saying this is new because it didn't say that in the booth, but it's like just, hey, look around, that's what we have to offer. But yeah, you had the X30 running on that, and I think interoperability has become a surprising theme in the industry.
Yeah, back again. It never dies.
Well, no, I would say it's not back again. I would say for years there was no interoperability. Then it was WebRTC, and you could use a web browser, but that was the best we got. But now it's like becoming a core feature of every video system. And to your point on the peripherals and the room systems, it's also becoming, I think you're like the only one, because like even if you go to Zoom or something like that, they're talking about interoperability a lot, but they have a very limited menu. But
everybody's got their version of
their version. Yeah. But yeah, and so you're showing your stuff on a lot of different platforms. But the interoperability has become a very strong theme, and the other big thing, whatever, that I'm seeing of this show.
It's first thing in the morning, folks. That's why we're stumbling, over 9 cups of coffee.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because people are wondering, what is wrong with that? Dave is not a morning person. Let's get this straight. So, but the other big theme that I'm seeing is a shift toward, I would say, bigger rooms. When the X30 came out, it was meant to be a front of the room type of display, and your original products were USB only, so you had to have your laptop right there. But now we're seeing in a lot of different places bigger rooms. I would say we're going toward multi-cameras in the rooms. Yes. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening in the video space that you keep on thinking, well, we're done. We've done it. We've invented it all now. But the story keeps on getting bigger and grander.
And the multi-camera platforms, the idea that everybody gets their own tile and be able to take different streams. There are like 14 different names for it. We have a name. Zoom has a name. Microsoft has a name. I'm not going to get bogged down in names, but the idea is more of that equity experience, that everybody's got their own similar experience wherever they are.
I have to be careful with all the different names because I work with all the different vendors, but I will give Zoom credit here for Smart Gallery. That is the better name of all these different options. So it's the same feature on Microsoft, same feature on Cisco, and other platforms. But I tend to use Smart Gallery as the name. Just people get that name. So
everybody has their own tile. It's interesting how after years of collaboration and years of video, that the home experience is the one that ultimately won out during the pandemic. People realized this was nice. I'm close to my own camera. I have my own tile. I see everybody else in their own tile. Now, instead of trying to bring the conference room experience to people's homes, we're bringing people's home experience to the conference room.
It was one of those things that kind of snuck up on us and nobody noticed, right? And so I remember my first experience with video conferencing was at a company, this must have been in the early 90s, and there was this big, beautiful room with a locked door, and it had all this fancy equipment and the big table, and the remote control was, huge and intimidating. And the concept of having this type of capability at home was not, you didn't even think about it. And then webcams.
Unless you're a senior executive.
Well, not even back then. I mean, because the webcams were so crappy, and it was just a ridiculous. And the internet, we didn't have broadband. It was, if you were lucky, you had ISDN. So it was really no way you could have this experience at home. And then slowly, we got broadband, we got better webcams, we got better technology. And then when the pandemic happened, we sent everybody home, and it's like, hey, this is working really well. And we're saying, okay, come back to work now. It's like, I don't want to go back to that stuff at the I got this great. I got my own volume control. I got my own display. I got my own everything here. This is way better. So now the enterprise is like, well, we could do as good as home. We could upgrade all this stuff. We can make it better, and that's what we're seeing at this show. We're seeing a lot of really nice stuff for the meeting rooms.
And the other thing that's interesting and overall a change is, you used to have to be either really good at AV. Here we're at the biggest AV show in the world, or have an AV technician standing by. You have to go over to this complicated touch panel that somebody programmed that made sense to someone. Some were better than others, but most, you would always find the admin or the receptionist or the person in the meeting that thought they didn't want to touch it because they thought Cleveland would blow up.
Yeah, no, I used to run IT at a big company, and we always had executive meeting on video, have somebody available, have somebody on standby, and that's completely gone now.
Now all you need to bring with you into the conference room, if you're using, and this is the key, if you're using the modern technology that developed during the pandemic over the last 2 or 3 years, all you need to bring with you is yourself and your personal expertise. You don't need AV expertise if you're an accountant or if you're a doctor. Bring your skill set. The system pretty much runs itself. It takes the shots, it adjusts the audio. In many cases, it can start the meeting if you're not afraid of it being creepy. There's a lot of my advice is if organizations haven't upgraded their technology in the last 3 or 4 years, they're far, far behind.
There's one exception.
And the new
to
stuff's
that.
cheaper.
It's cheaper and
better,
democratized.
Right.
But one exception to that, I've noticed this primarily on LinkedIn, but it used to be you were an AV professional, and that's kind of just turning into an IT or communications professional. Mm-hmm. But the one exception is the Microsoft community. When you look at people with the LinkedIn community, whatever, they're like, I'm a Teams person. That's who I am. That's my identity. I'm a Teams person. And everybody else is communications or messaging or video or whatever. But the Microsoft community just really holds on to that product name.
Yes, there is certainly that level of loyalty. So let's just take a 30,000 foot view for a second before we wrap this up. Is walking around the conference, looking at the other people in the space. Are there any other stories or themes or anything that came out of the show that really struck you? And no is a good answer, but I'm just curious because I've been going to these since the pandemic ended last year. A lot of conferences, and a lot of them have been more fluff than substance. A lot of them have been around networking and hugging people you haven't seen. And I'm getting that vibe here as well. That this is the first. The pandemic's over. This is like a pre-pandemic event.
Well, if you're gonna hug me, I gotta get my mask out. But I think there's a lot of excitement about being back at in-person events, and so there's a lot of what you're describing as the hugging and the reunion and the networking. In terms of this conference, I would say there's a lot of really good conversation happening around the industry. A lot of, like I said earlier, the booths are huge, the displays are big, and people want to talk about stuff. The biggest theme, of course, is the return to office and the hybrid office and working at home. So the hybrid situation. So they're showing everything. Almost every display has a home environment and an office environment, and you're going back and forth between the two. In terms of the broader picture, when we get outside of meetings and messaging, one thing I'm really excited about right now is what I've been calling UCAS Mobility 3.0. Cisco's got their WebEx Go on display. Microsoft's got their Microsoft Mobile on display. And what I don't think a lot of people realize about this new generation of UCAS mobility is how much it's going to stimulate the UCAS industry and the messaging industry. And so what's going to happen is you have all these remote employees that are only on cell phones because they don't have a desk anymore. They only have cell phones. And now when those cell phones become UCaaS clients or Teams clients or WebEx clients, then all of a sudden they're part of the UCaaS environment. All of a sudden they're on the chat platform. All of a sudden they're on the meetings platform. And I think we're going to see, because we've been seeing UCaaS kind of shrink. We've been seeing it as more and more people go outside the office and become full-time mobile. They're coming off the UCaaS license and just getting a mobile phone. And so that UCaaS footprint's getting smaller and smaller over the past few years. I think we're going to see a big reversal starting in this year where we go back to almost every employee, if not every employee, getting a UCaaS client and a chat client and a meetings client, et cetera. So I think it's going to be a pretty big shift.
Sure, and we're also seeing what I'm looking at as platform wars between some of the biggest players now. They have their own email, they have their own calendar, they have their own chat device, and they want to keep you on their platform. And the good thing about the Poly systems is we're universally natively compatible with everything. So if you would like to switch platforms,
including Google Meet,
you should reboot. You don't have to forklift buy anymore, which I wish existed when I was an end user. Those were like, oh, we're changing platforms. Okay, rip out all the gear we put in last year and put in new gear this year. That doesn't exist anymore. Now
there's also a smaller shift happening, and we see it mostly between Microsoft and Cisco. But comms has always been a zero-sum game. You're on this platform or that platform, and that's the way it's going to be. But last year, when Cisco and Microsoft announced kind of a detente, whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden it became, well, maybe an enterprise should have two platforms. Maybe it's an and, not an or. And so that's changing the conversation a little bit in that regards as well.
Okay. Tell people who are watching this if they want to get more information about Dave Michels.
I get to plug my.
Tell people why they should be in touch with you and how to do it.
So my company's called TalkingPointz. That's points with a Z on the end because for some reason the S was taken already. So TalkingPointz with a Z on the end.com. And I publish independently there. I publish a newsletter. I publish my own research notes. I also publish on the sites like NoJitter, and I do a number of research projects, etc. So check me out.
Easiest way to get in touch with you?
TalkingPointz.com or Dave Michels on Twitter.
Dave, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. First thing in the morning here. This is Thursday at ISE as we're talking with you now, and we'll have more Poly Weekly news in a second. Okay, so we're back here in the Starin Midwich studio here at ISE 2023, and my guest right now is Wainhouse extraordinaire, Wainhouse consultant, Wainhouse analyst, senior analyst is the actual term,
I think that's
right?
Right, yeah.
Wainhouse senior analyst, now part of Futurum.
That's what they gave me.
My friend and former colleague Craig Durr. Craig, thanks for joining us here.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
So for people who might not know who you are, and I don't know who that could possibly be, but if anybody might not know, give everybody a minute or two as to who you are and what you do in our industry.
Well, I'll talk to you about the larger Wainhouse experience and where I play into this. So Wainhouse Research is an analyst firm that happens to focus exclusively on what we call enterprise communications. So a lot of what we're talking about in this space is what plays. So you can think about the devices, the technologies, the solutions that enable business-to-business communications, business-to-customers communications, and the things that enable collaboration communications in those environments. My area of focus that I like to focus on is what I call group collaboration. A lot of what takes place in the conference rooms, but now it's going outside of the conference rooms into more of the office space as well too. Personal desks, shared desks, things like that as well too. And looking at those same devices and solutions as well. Now, I love being where I am right now. I've been here for about 4 years, but you and I have a shared past, and because I used to work with Poly, and I was there prior to joining Wainhouse for about 8 years. Before that, I worked with Dell, and before that with Microsoft. So I feel that the cool thing I can bring to our conversations is when you are on that vendor side and trying to understand some of those needs and customer conversations, and now being in this research side and analyst side and having some good data to bring back to those conversations, it finally helps close the gaps on some of those that missing information.
And we're really right at a time right now where everything you've just talked about is the hottest thing in the world.
No.
Companies are trying to figure. I mean, one of the data points that I've said multiple times, I apologize, I'm sure you guys have heard this before, is the idea that, and when I speak to end users, 90% of the companies I speak with have said that they're adopting hybrid working, but no two companies agree on what that means.
Oh, exactly. There's no single solution that works for everyone, right? There's no single playbook. It's a mentality, and there's a lot of different things for people to think about in that. And it goes across technology, it goes across culture, it goes across communication orientation, it even goes across the human resources element as well too. So it's
and you're walking past the stands here. They're not booths. We've talked about that on an earlier segment. It's booths in the U.S., stands here in Europe. You're walking past the stands, and almost everybody who's in the space is showing you their office solution and their home and remote solution.
I agree.
Kind of side by side. It's different than we've seen it before.
Yes. So think about who the audience is coming here. You have end users, but you also have channel partners too. And I think one of the great things that we're seeing here, one of the great is that people are doing these experiential ideas within the booths too. It's not just products on the wall, black boxes and what have you. People are now, the vendors are doing a great job of bringing together these type of experiences, which is important because as a channel partner, they want to know how can I further enrich that customer's experience, whether it be in the enterprise or helping them bridge what's taking place at home with their employees.
All right, so 30,000 foot view. You've been here now as we're talking. This is 2.5 days.
Yeah. Non-stop.
What non? Tell me, we've just been talking all day about non-stop. The fact that you're standing, I'm leaning. I don't think I could stand. What's your big reaction, your big takeaway to what we've seen over here this year? I mean, we've spoken to a number of the analysts. The last couple of years, after the pandemic, people were starting to get back together. The conferences are all about hugging. Yeah. We're all about, hey, it's great to get back together again. We're in person. I'm starting, and then there are people who've told me how nice this is, that this feels like a pre-pandemic show, that everybody's back. To me, honestly, it's still everybody hugging. It's going to wear off at some point. People are going to actually have to start shipping products.
You're right, and I think that's a key thing here. Here's my key takeaway. And remember, we were just here not that long ago in May, right? So for the earlier version. We have seen the last couple of quarters a lot of product announcements, a lot of forward-thinking ideas, and at this show, I'm seeing some really key ones come to market or come to beta that people can touch and see them and play with them. I can go over a whole list if you're interested in those.
Well, give me your top 3 or 4 without brand names, unless it's Poly, then please throw the brand name out there.
Well, what you have is you have interoperability stories, right? Where you have one UC platform able to work seamlessly with other UC platforms. In fact, you've got 2 of those stories now being shown live in the booth right now between a plethora of 4 different players there. You've got devices that are coming out that people have talked about in a while. Now they have a chance to sit there and see them in action. Certified devices through the Microsoft program as well too are actually now where people can actually, does that work for my use cases, that my thing. So a lot of product announcement, a lot of activity was taking place during that COVID timeframe development, and people I think companies wanted to keep people engaged, and now we're seeing those announcements, those roadmap ideas hitting the street. So.
Well, you're the last person on the show for this week, so I'm going to be a little more snarky with you than I have been with everybody else, because I know you can handle it, but not at you. A lot of the announcements are sort of non-announcements.
Oh, there's still a lot of those. Yeah. There's
things that were announced in February.
Yeah.
And it was good to show them. It's good for people to get their hands on them. We've done that the Poly booth, with our Google stuff and some of our Microsoft things.
Right.
It's good, but it's not new. You have, without naming names, you have a vendor that's announcing, a technology with a half silvered glass that I know I bought and sold 15, 20 years ago, and they're announcing it as if it was new. So is that really an announcement?
There's still a lot of slideware. So I think. Let's put it in context. We've got over 900 vendors here. Now, of course, there are other spaces as well.
Yeah, that was the number. 900 vendors, 4,500 attendees.
45,000 attendees.
45,000 attendees.
Yeah, it's about 200,000 square meters of space, 8 halls. It's huge. There are people that are still playing slideware in announcements taking place, and that's, I understand. There's some that I've actually seen products in booth that aren't GA yet and have been in that position for a couple of shows now. So when they're saying it's going to be GA, it's going to be GA. And
there are vendors here that have announced products that never made it, never made it to GA. It's like, you walk through their booth and say, what happened to that bigger thing that you were talking about? Oh, we decided not to do it.
I think it took place in that COVID time frame. There was a lot of interest in keeping people's mind share when you couldn't get them to come to booths and come to announcements. So I think there's probably the fallout of that as well too. So it's a fair criticism. I do appreciate both sides of that. What you're saying there, but then there's some that did come. I mean, so it was a slight nuance. You guys did this. You guys got the Poly HP combination together, and that is like one of those final this is the glue that's really making this partnership, this acquisition take hold now, right? It's a subtle thing. People don't see that box under the table, but now it's important in terms of what you're going to talk about to channels with customers and things like that.
Well, it's the second day of third day of February, whatever it is, and that wall only came up November 1st.
Yeah.
So the fact that Brian made that point earlier in the show that the fact that we've been able to bring these things together with the best of both, even this early on, I think is amazing. Definitely check out the new MTR room kits based on PC that are now using the HP PC. It's a really powerful little box.
Yeah, I recorded a video over there, so we'll put some stuff up there. It's a great little thing too. And then also what you mentioned too. So here's an example of stuff coming out. Google running on Android devices. You guys have the portfolio up and running on that too, which is the Google Meet experience. I've talked with those executives for a bit too. They're really excited about the partnership. What's your thing?
You would have thought that Google Meet would work on Android
I know.
earlier than this.
Yeah.
But no, we're happy to be I'll say amongst the first, but we were the first to announce, so leave it like that.
That's fair.
Any other big themes that you pick up as you walk around the show floor that people should know about who are attending here?
Let's dive in deeper to the one that you talked about. So I was talking about the learning experiences and products coming to market, but I do think there is the point that people are trying to address hybrid work, and how can I help you do that? Because the whole challenge that people are dealing with hybrid work, and we see it in the news in the U.S., and I also think they're seeing it here in Europe, is how do you get employees to come in? What's the motivation factor? And they're not coming in just to do work. You always famously say, work is something you do, it's not where you go. And that is now taking hold, right? So you've got to think about what the office purpose is, and people are trying to address that here. So I work in frameworks all the time. I have one that I work at. People go to the offices for 4 reasons. You can continue to break it up, but for the most part, 4 reasons. They're going to go in to do work, they're going to go in to collaborate, they're going to go in to learn, and they're going to go in to socialize. Socialization, education, collaboration, and productivity, getting work done. That productivity was the big part of what office spaces were before. That was your desk assigned to Dave Danto. Mm-hmm. That was mine assigned to me. But what's flipping now is that I can do that at home. And I can maybe be a little bit more productive as well too, because I have opportunity to manage my own schedule and be that. So what are the drivers to get people into the office? Collaboration has been the tip of the spear, and there's also some things like socialization and education. Now, don't dismiss socialization. Don't think that's Taco Tuesday and I want to go in because I got free lunch. It's the idea that people need to go in and connect with not only their coworkers but with the company as well too. So there's a cultural element. This is where it comes in. Do I like Poly? Is it somebody I want to work for? Do I believe in their core beliefs and what they're sharing? And that's one of those drivers to get people in. That's the town hall meeting. That's the experience there. And then there's also around the idea of education. You and I are used to education being in a large boardroom, one person up front presenting, and that's still an education opportunity. You're educating the 20 people in that room or whatever it is about my presentation, my business proposal, whatever else. Well, now people are doing a little bit more flex room spaces where they need to have the flexible technology to help address that. The room might be one thing for one moment, then switch over. Think of like a hotel room. That's the most example that people are aware of, but now it's taking place in the office, right? I might set up work pods one day. I might turn it around so that it's a lectern up front with rows of seats. It might be a classroom setting the next meeting or something like that. So these are the drivers to get people into the office, and the need that our friends in IT and technologists help provide is they help make it a frictionless experience, and that's where the good technology comes in.
And 2 of the key tenets that we've been talking about at Poly and HP over the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue to talk about, is breaking down the concept of return to office. No one is returning to the office the way it was.
Yeah.
The office needs to be different if you want it to be a magnet, if you want people to want to come back. And that's everything from paint on the walls to technology in the rooms and on the desks.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that so much technology has improved so rapidly during the pandemic that if you haven't refreshed, even in the last 2 or 3 years, everything's obsolete. You can walk into a conference room now without any knowledge of how to use any systems, and it just does it for you. The systems are less expensive, they're easier to use, they're smarter, but you have to have made changes to the office for people to come back to it.
Absolutely agree. It's a really interesting thing that's taking place where when you think about putting technology in the offices, IT pretty much own that decision historically. But they have new stakeholders now to think about. I think corporate real estate and facilities is a higher stakeholder in what's taking place and what technology you're putting in my rooms, because we talk about these configurations. And I think HR is also a big, important contributor to what those requirements are. And so what I'm trying to get to is the technology has evolved to do this. And you can't go back to the old conference room system that you had 5 years ago.
Break out of the conference room.
Yeah. And even the technology has. You've got to go back. I'm pointing to the walls if it's what's on the wall.
That's okay. We get you. It translated easily, and for the camera.
Yeah, good. But what I'm trying to say is, you're right. The refresh is an important part of that. Not only is it paint on the walls, it's got to be technology that adapts not only to these new ways of work.
Exactly. So, I guess final thoughts as we leave here. On my calendar, probably on your calendar, the next big one's about a month away or so, a little more than a month. Enterprise Connect is coming up. Do we expect to see anything vastly different at that event than we're seeing here right now? Are people holding announcements? Or
it's a good question, because then also don't forget 3 months after that is InfoComm as well too, right? So
at some point,
yeah,
we say, do we really need to be at all of these?
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. I think there's going to be some announcements and some information coming out between those two time frames. You guys might have announcements. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, we have rolling announcements all year, so everybody who watches Poly Weekly News will get those announcements a little bit after we do them. We're never going to break it, but we'll bring it to you.
Right. Yeah. Nothing I said here applies.
No NDA. No NDA.
I don't know anything. I'm speculating here. Yeah, I think we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting show. What's going to take place? So.
I think my takeaway, and I'd love your opinion on this just before we close. The era of the enormous stand, booth, behemoth, it's got a kitchen and a bathroom built in. I don't think people are coming to get their hands on gear anymore. I think people are coming to these conferences to hear from each other, from peers, and from experts. And to the extent that these get-togethers give that ability in a way, especially now that we're more remote and hybrid, that we don't see people every day, that it is one of those learning opportunities, I think they'll survive. To the extent that it is, I'm going to impress you with my enormous stand and take up half the floor, I don't see that as surviving very long.
I think that's a fair idea. Go back to even what we talked about the office. I'm here for my education, I'm here for socialization, I'm here for collaboration. You and I have had a side meeting before, and we had a chance to talk about some other things because we wanted to close something that we don't see, face to face, and that type of idea. So, I can see those things evolving. I think there's a lot of people, customers, asking questions about how do I make hybrid work. And so, figuring that out, coming and seeing not only technology but talking to other people and getting ideas.
And we're starting to see there's a great article in the LA Times that I think was written by a Bloomberg reporter a couple of weeks ago. We're starting to see companies turn the corner. Instead of fighting their employees about you're coming back, no, you're not coming back, now they're starting to adopt this concept of hybrid working with their own tag on it, hybrid with productivity, flexible plus progress or some, they're starting to own it, which is a good sign. It looks like the corner is being turned.
It is. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of activity taking place, and we can always find examples of people that have locked down and are not doing it. So whenever we have people have this conversation, I always bring up the financial sector, what's taking place with some of these large bank announcements about people coming in. Here's a funny anecdotal story. As I was doing some interviews for the financial services area, and I was talking to someone, he's like, yes, we do hybrid work. We give our employees the option of working from home on Friday. And I'm like, however you want to define it, that's not really it. But you're right, other people are starting to adopt to that and make this. So you're going to have, I already said the phrase, it's no single playbook. You're going to have different patches adopting it. But I think we are at the point of kind of crossing a chasm where I think there's enough information that people can develop their own best practices and apply what they need to do in-house themselves. And it goes space, technology, and workflows.
Really awesome points, Craig. Craig, if somebody wanted to reach out to you personally or reach out to Wainhouse, how would you suggest they do that?
So you can find us on the web, www.wainhouse.com. You can find myself on many social channels. So on Twitter, it's at Craig Durr, CraigDurr. On LinkedIn, / Craig Durr as well, too. Just Google Craig Durr, and hopefully there's nothing wrong in there that you find.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Hey,
I appreciate it. Safe travels back, and I will see you in Florida for Enterprise Connect.
We are. We'll be there. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
So that's it for this week's Poly Weekly News from the ISE show here in Barcelona. Next week's show, Andre Reed is going to join me, and we're going to be doing a great show and tell about the new Poly Voyager 360 headsets. Until then, for all of my colleagues at Poly and HP, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.